At my granddaughter's birthday party, my daughter's mother-in-law grabbed my 7-year-old by the arm and slapped her across the face. Her son, my son-in-law, just watched. Then he said, "Mom knows best. Maybe now she'll learn some manners." My hands trembled. Not from weakness, from restraint. I excused myself, walked to the backyard, and made a phone call. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I hadn't seen my daughter Emily in 2 months when the invitation arrived. A text from Derek, my son-in-law, not from her. Lily's birthday party. Saturday, 3 p.m. Be there. No warmth, no please. Just a command disguised as an invitation. I drove from my modest house in Cedar Park to their McMansion in Westlake Hills that afternoon. The kind of cautious hope you develop at 68, when experience has taught you that family gatherings rarely come without complications. Their house on Redbud Trail looked impressive from the outside. 4,000 square feet of limestone and pretension. I'd offered to help with their down payment years ago, but Derek's mother Patricia had insisted they didn't need charity from Emily's side of the family. They took a loan from her instead. At 12% interest, I later learned. Derek answered the door. His smile stopped at his teeth. "Harold, you made it. Not Dad, not even Mr. Whitmore. Just my first name, delivered like he was acknowledging a delivery driver." Emily appeared behind him. My chest tightened. She'd lost weight, too much weight. Her eyes darted between Derek and me like she was calculating safe distances. When she hugged me, I felt her shoulder blades through her cardigan. "Hi, Daddy," she whispered. "Thanks for coming." "Wouldn't miss Lily's birthday," I said, though we both knew I'd missed plenty lately. Not by choice. The party was already underway. A dozen children ran through the backyard. Lily, my granddaughter, spotted me through the glass doors, and her face lit up. She started running toward me, but Patricia intercepted her. Patricia Holloway, Derek's mother, owner of Holloway Interior Design, a business she mentioned within 5 minutes of every conversation. She stood blocking Lily's path, hand firm on the child's shoulder. "Lily, we don't run inside. What have I told you about manners? But Grandpa Harold is here. He can wait. Proper young ladies don't run." I watched my granddaughter deflate, the same way I'd watched Emily deflate over the past 5 years. Patricia released her, and Lily walked toward me slowly, shoulders curved forward. I knelt down and hugged her. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. 7 years old. That's practically grown up." She giggled, but it was quieter than I remembered, more careful. The party continued with Patricia orchestrating everything. Where people sat, what they ate, when gifts were opened. Derek followed her commands without question, and Emily followed Derek's, and somewhere in this hierarchy, my daughter had disappeared. I noticed things. The way Emily flinched when Patricia's voice rose. How she apologized constantly for the cake being slightly lopsided, for the decorations not matching perfectly, for Lily being too energetic around the guests. The camera I'd given Emily for Christmas sat on a shelf in the living room, still in its box. When I asked about it, Patricia said, "Emily doesn't have time for hobbies. She has responsibilities now." I excused myself to use the bathroom. Walking through their hallway, I scanned the walls. Photos of Derek's family covered every surface. Patricia at various business events. Derek at golf tournaments. The Holloway family crest framed like it meant something. Not a single picture of me with Lily. Not one photo from my side of the family. I'd been edited out, archived, removed from the visual history of my granddaughter's life. When I returned, Patricia was lecturing Emily about the proper way to serve refreshments. My daughter nodded, mumbled agreement, shrank smaller with each word. I remembered teaching Emily to ride a bike. She was 6, determined, fearless, fell a dozen times, and got back up every single time. "Let me try again, Daddy," she'd say. "I'm going to get it." That girl wouldn't recognize this woman. The party had dwindled to family by 5 o'clock. Most guests had left. Lily was playing with her new toys in the corner, examining a dollhouse Patricia had given her. An exact replica of their actual house, which must have cost a fortune and seemed more like a statement than a gift. I'd given Lily a telescope, She loved the stars, loved asking me questions about planets and moons. When she'd opened it, her eyes went wide with wonder. Patricia had glanced at it dismissively. A telescope. How educational. She'd pronounced educational like it was an insult. Now, sitting in their formal living room, I watched Emily try to navigate a conversation with her mother-in-law, while Derek scrolled through his phone. "The tea set you bought for Lily is beautiful, Mrs. Holloway," Emily said carefully. "She loves it." "Of course she does. I have excellent taste. Unlike that toy telescope your father brought. Lily needs things that prepare her for society, not gadgets for stargazing." "She enjoys looking at the stars," Emily said quietly. "It's educational." Patricia's expression sharpened. "Are you contradicting me?" "No, I just meant, because this is exactly what I've been telling Derek. You don't understand how to raise a proper child. You didn't come from the right background. No offense to your father, but living in a small house in Cedar Park isn't exactly preparation for the Holloway standards." I continued sipping my tea, letting the insult settle into the quiet space between my ribs. The teacup was Wedgwood, probably cost $200. Patricia had mentioned that twice already. At my age, I'd learned that defending yourself against people like Patricia only encourages them. So, I set down my cup carefully and said, "Well, at my age, a small house has its advantages. Less to clean." Patricia's expression suggested she'd expected anger, not self-deprecation. She shifted in her chair, looked at Derek. He didn't look up from his phone. The rest of the gathering blurred into a montage of small cruelties. Patricia criticized Emily's cooking, her housekeeping, her parenting. Derek occasionally looked up to agree with his mother or add his own complaints. Emily apologized for everything, constantly, reflexively. I watched, I listened, I noted. Around 6 o'clock, Lily came running into the living room, excited about something she'd discovered with her new telescope. "Grandpa Harold! Grandpa Harold! I can see the moon even though it's still daytime. Come look." She grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the window. Her enthusiasm was pure, unburdened by the tension surrounding us. "Lily," Patricia's voice cracked like a whip. "What have I said about running? And shouting? Proper young ladies don't behave this way." "But Grandma Patricia, the moon." "I don't care about the moon." Patricia stood, her face rigid with disapproval. "You've been wild all day. This is exactly why I've told your parents you need stricter discipline. Come here." Lily's hand tightened in mine. "I don't want to." I said, "Come here. Now." Emily stood up, tentative. "Mom, maybe we should let her." "You stay out of this." Patricia pointed at Emily. "You've clearly failed to teach her proper behavior. This is exactly what I predicted when Derek married beneath him." Derek finally looked up from his phone. "Mom's right, Emily. Lily's been acting out all day. Let Mom handle it." Lily shrank behind me, gripping my leg. Patricia strode forward, reaching past me to grab Lily's arm. She yanked, hard enough that Lily cried out. "Let me go." Lily twisted, trying to pull away. What happened next seemed to occur in slow motion. Patricia raised her hand and slapped my granddaughter across the face. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Lily burst into tears, her cheek already reddening. Emily gasped, stepped forward, then stopped when Derek grabbed her wrist. "Mom knows best," Derek said, his voice flat. "Maybe now she'll learn some manners." Patricia was breathing hard, still gripping Lily's arm. "This is what happens when you run and shout, when you disrespect your elders, when your mother fails to teach you properly." Time stretched. Lily sobbing, hand pressed to her face. Patricia standing over her with satisfaction. Derek holding Emily back. Emily's eyes filled with tears and helplessness. I set down my teacup, placed my napkin beside it, stood slowly. Patricia turned to me, apparently expecting agreement. Or, at least silence. "You understand, Harold. Sometimes children need firm correction. It's how things were done in our generation." The living room felt very small, very quiet despite Lily's crying. "Excuse me a moment," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. I walked to the kitchen. 12 steps, maybe 15. Through the doorway, I could still see the living room. Lily crying on the floor. Patricia adjusting her blouse like she'd just completed an ordinary task. Derek back on his phone. Emily kneeling beside her daughter, whispering comfort she wasn't allowed to provide. My phone came out smoothly. 42 years as a federal judge teaches you certain skills. Documentation first. Always documentation first. I activated the voice recorder, then made the call. Margaret, this is Harold Whitmore. Judge Whitmore? Margaret Chen's voice carried surprise. She'd been a clerk in my courtroom years ago, now a lieutenant with Austin PD. Is everything all right? No. I need assistance. I'm witnessing what appears to be child abuse, physical assault on a 7-year-old by an adult female. Location is 4847 Redbud Trail, Westlake Hills. Are you in danger? No. The perpetrator doesn't consider me a threat. She's currently still in the room with the victim. Units are being dispatched. Stay on the line if you can safely. I understand. I'm recording the ongoing situation. Judge, I'll be there personally. I ended the call, slipped my phone into my pocket with the recorder still running, and returned to the living room. The scene hadn't changed. Lily was still crying. Emily was still helpless. Patricia was now lecturing about the importance of discipline in child development. Please, I said, sitting back down. Continue. Patricia barely paused. As I was saying, children today are too coddled. When Derek was young, I didn't hesitate to correct him physically when necessary. It builds character. And you believe physical correction is appropriate for a 7-year-old? Obviously. That's what I just demonstrated. She was being disrespectful, running, shouting, contradicting her elders. A slap teaches her consequences. I see. And you, Derek, you agree with this approach? Derek didn't look up from his phone. Mom raised me right. Lily needs the same firm hand. I glanced at my watch. 4 minutes since the call. Emily, still kneeling beside Lily, looked at me. Something passed between us. Confusion at my calm. A question in her eyes. I gave her the smallest nod. Trust me. 6 minutes. The doorbell rang. Patricia's head snapped up, annoyed. Who could that be? Derek, see who it is. Derek walked to the door, opened it. His posture went rigid. Good evening, Lieutenant Margaret Chen said, her voice professional. We received a report of a disturbance at this address. What? Derek's voice cracked. There's no disturbance. This is a private family gathering. Margaret stepped past him, 2 officers following. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on Lily, still crying with a red handprint visible on her cheek. Then she looked at me. Judge Whitmore, she said with the slightest nod. The silence lasted 4 heartbeats. Judge? Patricia's voice came out strangled. Judge Whitmore? Retired, I said mildly. U.S. District Court, Western District of Texas. 42 years on the bench. Derek's face had gone white. You're a federal judge? I retired in 2019, but old habits remain. Margaret knelt beside Lily, her voice gentle. Sweetheart, can you tell me what happened to your face? Lily looked at me, uncertain. I nodded encouragingly. Grandma Patricia hit me, Lily whispered. Because I was running. Margaret photographed the handprint, still clearly visible on Lily's cheek. Then she stood and faced Patricia. Ma'am, I need to ask about the mark on this child's face. This is ridiculous. Patricia drew herself up. I disciplined my granddaughter appropriately. It's a family matter. Striking a child hard enough to leave a visible mark is assault under Texas Penal Code Section 22.01, Margaret said evenly. I need you to step over here. I have rights. I'm Patricia Holloway. I own Holloway Interior Design. I know the mayor personally. That's nice, ma'am. Please step over here. I spoke quietly. I recorded the incident, Lieutenant. Audio from the moment of impact through her subsequent justification. Also, her statement that physical correction of children is her standard practice. Margaret nodded. That will be helpful for documentation. Derek finally found his voice. This is entrapment. You planned this. You set up my mother. I documented a crime as it occurred. That's not entrapment. That's observation and responsible reporting. Patricia was crying now, though I suspected the tears were strategic. I didn't do anything wrong. I was correcting her behavior. Parents used to do this all the time. Times change, Margaret said. Standards evolve. Striking a child is no longer acceptable, regardless of intent. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs clicked into place. Patricia's face contorted with rage and disbelief. This isn't over, she hissed at me. I have lawyers. I have connections. You're a retired nobody living in a shack. I remained seated, hands folded. You'll want excellent counsel, Mrs. Holloway. I recommend retaining someone immediately. They led her toward the door. Derek followed, protesting, threatening, making the situation worse with every word. Margaret stayed behind, taking additional photos. Emily's statement, Lily's account, in child-appropriate terms. I'd watched the same process thousands of times from the bench. Now I was experiencing it from the other side. I'll need statements from both of you tomorrow, Margaret said to Emily and me. Can you come to the station in the morning? We'll be there, I said. Emily stood slowly. Lily clutched against her. Dad, she whispered. I didn't know you were. A judge? I know. That was intentional. But all these years, they treated you like, and you never said anything. I watched Lily's face, the handprint fading but still visible. Because I wanted you to love me for being your father, not for being Judge Whitmore. Titles fade. Family remains. Derek appeared in the doorway, face twisted with anger. Emily, we need to talk. Now. She looked at him, then at me, then at Lily. No, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. Something had shifted. We're leaving with my father. If you walk out that door, then I walk out. Emily grabbed her purse. I should have walked out years ago. We drove in silence for the first 10 minutes. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from crying. Emily stared out the window at the passing streetlights. Finally, she spoke. 42 years as a federal judge. Yes. Why didn't you ever tell me? The question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. Because when I retired, I wanted to be your father. Just your father. Not the Honorable Harold Whitmore, who sentenced criminals and made headlines. I wanted you to know me as Dad, not as the judge. But all those times Patricia called you a nobody, said you lived in a shack, implied you were beneath them. I let them believe what they wanted. People reveal themselves when they think you're powerless. Patricia and Derek showed me exactly who they were. Emily was quiet until we reached my house, the modest house on Cypress Creek Road that Patricia had mocked so many times. 3 bedrooms, small yard, nothing impressive from the outside. Inside, I showed Emily and Lily to the guest room. My granddaughter was already half asleep as Emily tucked her in. In the kitchen, over cups of tea, Emily asked the questions that had been building. Dad, what happens now? Tomorrow, we give statements. Patricia will likely be charged with assault on a minor. Given the clear evidence and her own admissions on recording, prosecution shouldn't be difficult. And Derek? That depends on Emily's choices. But I suspect there will be divorce proceedings in your future. She nodded slowly. I've wanted to leave for years. I just felt so trapped. You're not trapped anymore. My phone buzzed. Text from Richard Torres, an old friend who'd handled family law cases in my courtroom for decades. Saw the news. Available whenever Emily needs counsel. Pro bono for the Whitmore family. I showed Emily the text. She started crying. The statement process the next morning was methodical. Lieutenant Chen walked Emily through every detail while a technician processed my audio recording. Lily gave her account to a child advocate specialist. By noon, Patricia Holloway was formally charged with assault causing bodily injury to a child, a third-degree felony under Texas law. Derek arrived at the station with an attorney, demanding to see his wife. Emily refused. She's my wife, Derek shouted in the waiting area. She doesn't get to decide. Actually, Lieutenant Chen said calmly, she does. And I'd advise you to leave before you create additional problems for yourself. He left, but not before threatening everyone present with lawsuits, career destruction, and unspecified consequences. Over the following weeks, I watched the careful machinery of justice begin to move. Richard Torres filed for divorce on Emily's behalf. Emergency protective order granted immediately, keeping both Derek and Patricia away from Emily and Lily. Derek's attorney fought everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. I made a few phone calls, not to influence the case, but to ensure proper attention. The Texas State Bar received documentation of Derek's threatening behavior at the police station. The Better Business Bureau received complaints about Holloway interior design that I'd heard through the community over the years. Nothing fabricated, just proper reporting of existing issues. 3 weeks after the birthday party, I received a call from an old colleague at the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. "Harold, interesting situation with that Holloway woman you mentioned. We did some checking. Her business has significant irregularities, unreported income, suspicious deductions. We're opening a formal investigation." I thanked him and hung up. 2 days later, the Texas Department of Licensing received an anonymous tip about Holloway interior design operating without proper contractor credentials on several projects. An investigation was opened. Emily watched from my kitchen table as I made notes in my leather journal, a habit from 4 decades on the bench. "Dad, is this what it was like, being a judge?" "Sometimes. Justice isn't always dramatic. Often it's documentation and patience, following proper channels, letting consequences unfold naturally." "Did you cause all of this? The investigations?" I reported existing violations to appropriate authorities. Patricia built her business on shortcuts and deception. I didn't create her problems. I simply ensured they received proper attention. She was quiet for a moment. "Is that wrong? Using your knowledge this way? Is it wrong to report crimes? To ensure accountability?" "I never fabricated anything, Emily. I never used my position improperly. I simply applied 42 years of understanding how systems work." The divorce proceedings began in early summer. Richard Torres was methodical and thorough. He documented everything. Financial records showing Derek had secretly transferred assets to his mother's business, Emily's contributions that had been dismissed and devalued, the pattern of emotional abuse that had escalated over 5 years. Derek's attorney tried to paint Emily as an unfit mother, citing her nervous demeanor and weight loss. Richard countered with evidence that those symptoms resulted from years of psychological manipulation. The turning point came when Richard subpoenaed financial records from Holloway Interior Design. The documents revealed that Derek had been embezzling from his employer, a real estate development firm, and funneling money through his mother's company. Suddenly, Derek had bigger problems than his divorce. His employer filed charges. The amount exceeded $200,000, enough for felony prosecution. Derek was arrested on a Tuesday morning, the same week his mother's preliminary hearing began. I watched from the gallery as Patricia Holloway, designer to Austin's elite, stood before Judge Maria Gonzalez in orange scrubs. Her attorney argued for reduced charges, citing her standing in the community and lack of prior record. The prosecutor, a young woman named Sarah Park, played my audio recording. Patricia's voice filled the courtroom, dismissive and entitled, explaining why slapping a child was appropriate discipline. Judge Gonzalez's expression hardened. Bail set at $50,000. Trial date August 15th. Outside the courthouse, I encountered Patricia's attorney, a polished man named Harrison Webb. "Judge Whitmore," he said carefully, "I understand you're the one who recorded the incident. I documented what I witnessed. My client would like to discuss a resolution. Perhaps the charges could be—" I stopped him with a raised hand. "I'm not the prosecutor, Mr. Webb. I'm simply a witness. Your client's fate is in the hands of the justice system she apparently never believed would apply to her." He studied me for a long moment. "They said you were formidable. I didn't realize how much." I drove home, thinking about that word, formidable. For 42 years, I'd been called that. Fair, thorough, and formidable. Attorneys had prepared differently for my courtroom. Defendants had straightened when I entered. Then I'd retired, moved to a modest house, let my reputation fade. Became just Harold, the quiet grandfather who lived simply. Patricia and Derek had seen only the surface. They'd measured worth in square footage and job titles. They'd dismissed me because I didn't display my credentials, didn't name-drop my accomplishments, didn't correct their assumptions. That was their mistake. The summer progressed with a cascade of consequences. Patricia's trial ended in conviction. The evidence was too clear, her own words too damning. Judge Gonzalez sentenced her to 2 years probation, mandatory anger management, community service, and permanent inclusion on the state's child abuse registry. Her interior design license was revoked, pending the outcome of the TDLR investigation. Derek pleaded guilty to embezzlement to avoid a trial. 2 years in state prison, full restitution required. His marriage to Emily was dissolved the same week. The IRS investigation revealed $180,000 in unreported income over 5 years. Holloway Interior Design was forced to close. Patricia's assets were seized for back taxes and penalties. Emily and Lily moved into my house officially. The guest room became Lily's room. We painted it together, pale purple with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching Lily chase fireflies, Emily asked, "Did you know all of this would happen when you made that phone call?" I knew the call would start something. Justice is a process, not an event. You document, you report, you follow procedures, and you trust the system to work. But the IRS, the licensing board, Derek's embezzlement being discovered. I helped appropriate authorities become aware of existing issues, nothing more. Patricia and Derek built houses of cards. I didn't knock them down. I just stopped pretending the wind wasn't blowing. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "Thank you, Dad." I put my arm around her. "I'm your father. This is what fathers do." The final pieces fell into place by autumn. Patricia, facing financial ruin and social exile, moved to a small apartment in Round Rock. Her society friends had vanished once the conviction became public. The woman who'd lectured everyone about proper breeding and appropriate backgrounds now worked part-time at a home goods store. Derek served his time at a minimum security facility in East Texas. His letters to Emily went unopened. She'd changed her name back to Whitmore. One October afternoon, I received a call from Harrison Webb. "Judge Whitmore, I'm calling on behalf of Patricia Holloway. She's requested a meeting with you." "For what purpose?" "She says she wants to apologize. To you and to your granddaughter. She claims she's changed, that prison counseling and therapy have given her perspective." I considered. "Tell her I'll meet with her. Next Tuesday, 3 o'clock. Public location, the coffee shop on Congress Avenue." I arrived early, found a table near the window. Patricia appeared exactly on time, a punctuality that remained from her previous life. Everything else had changed. No designer clothes, no perfect manicure. She looked 10 years older. She sat across from me, hands folded on the table. "Thank you for meeting me. You have 5 minutes." She nodded, accepting the boundary. I practiced what I wanted to say, wrote it out. But sitting here, I realize words are inadequate. Try anyway. "I struck your granddaughter, a 7-year-old child. I hit her because she was excited to see you, because she was being a normal, happy little girl. And I was so convinced of my own superiority, so certain that my way was the only proper way, that I thought violence was appropriate correction." She paused, gathering herself. "I've spent months in therapy examining how I became someone who would do that. The entitlement, the need for control, the belief that wealth and status made my cruelty acceptable. I was wrong, deeply, fundamentally wrong." I watched her face, looking for performance. I'd seen thousands of defendants over 42 years. Many apologized. Few meant it. "I don't expect forgiveness," Patricia continued. "I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did, what I was, and I'm trying to be different." "What about Lily?" I wrote her a letter, age appropriate, vetted by my therapist. "I'm hoping you'll read it first. Decide if it's suitable for her to receive." Her voice cracked. "I don't want to cause her any more harm." I took the envelope she offered. "I'll read it. If it's appropriate, Emily will decide whether Lily sees it." Patricia nodded. "And your daughter, how is she?" "Healing, stronger every day." "I'm glad. She deserved better than what my son and I did to her." She stood, and for a moment looked like she wanted to say more. Then she simply nodded and walked away. That evening, I read Patricia's letter to Lily. Simple words, genuine remorse, no excuses. An apology that asked for nothing in return. Emily read it, cried, and ultimately decided to share it with Lily when she was older. For now, it went in a file, evidence of change, to be evaluated over time. Derek's letter arrived 3 weeks later, forwarded through his attorney. It was different than his mother's. Blame shifting, minimizing, claiming he'd been under stress, that Emily had been difficult, that things had gotten out of hand. Emily read it once, tore it in half, and threw it away. Some people learn, she said. Some people don't. The anniversary of Lily's birthday approached, a year since the phone call that changed everything. We celebrated at home, quiet, happy. Lily blew out 8 candles and wished for a puppy. Emily laughed for the first time in what felt like years. After Lily went to bed, Emily and I sat in the kitchen, drinking tea from simple mugs. The room had become our space for difficult conversations, late-night worries, gradual healing. "Dad," she said, "I've been offered a job. Marketing director for a nonprofit in Austin. Good salary, good work." "That's wonderful." "It would mean getting our own place, Lily and I. Not far, just..." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "That's what I hoped would happen. You're ready." She smiled, eyes wet. "I learned something this year. You taught me." "What's that?" "That quiet doesn't mean weak. That power doesn't have to be displayed to be real. You sat through years of insults without defending yourself. Not because you couldn't, but because you knew who you were. You didn't need them to see it." I thought about all the times Patricia had called me a nobody, all the times Derek had dismissed me, all the moments I could have corrected them, revealed my credentials, demanded respect. I'd chosen differently. Let them believe their own assumptions, watched and waited. And when it mattered, when my granddaughter needed protection, I'd acted. "People reveal themselves when they think you're powerless," I said. "That's true for villains and heroes both. Patricia showed me her cruelty. You showed me your strength." "Me?" "You stood up to Derek. You walked out. You rebuilt your life. That took more courage than anything I did." Emily shook her head. "You saved us." "I helped. You saved yourself." Months turned into seasons. Emily and Lily moved to a townhouse in South Austin, close enough for weekly dinners, far enough for independence. The nonprofit job thrived. Emily's confidence returned. Lily excelled in school, made friends, asked for that puppy, and got a golden retriever she named Star. She still loved her telescope, still asked me questions about planets and moons. I returned to my quiet routines, morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks, monthly lunches with old colleagues who still called me Judge out of habit. One afternoon, Richard Torres called with news. "Harold, thought you'd want to know. Patricia Holloway completed her probation. Clean record since the conviction. She's working at a domestic violence shelter now, leading programs for people who want to break cycles of abuse." I considered this information. Rehabilitation or image management. Time would tell. And Derek? Released on parole. Living in Houston. No contact with Emily or Lily. Condition of his release. Good. After hanging up, I sat in my office, surrounded by the artifacts of 42 years on the bench. Framed commendations, photos with attorneys general and Supreme Court justices, the gavel from my last case. None of it mattered as much as the crayon drawing on my refrigerator. Lily's artwork from last week. 3 figures holding hands. Grandpa Harold, Mommy, and Lily. Above them, stars. She'd written underneath in careful letters. My family. That evening, Emily and Lily came for dinner. We cooked together, spaghetti and meatballs, Lily's favorite. The kitchen, filled with laughter and steam, and the comfortable chaos of family. Over dinner, Lily announced her career plans. "Grandpa, I'm going to be a judge like you when I grow up." Emily and I exchanged glances. "Why's that, sweetheart?" "Because you help people. That's what you did for Mommy and me. You helped us when we needed it." I reached across the table and ruffled her hair. "You can be anything you want, Lily. Judge, astronaut, artist, whatever makes you happy. Can I be all 3? I laughed. Why not? After dinner, we sat on the back porch. The Texas evening was warm, cicadas singing, stars emerging one by one. Lily had her telescope set up, showing Emily the craters on the moon. "Dad," Emily said quietly, while Lily adjusted the focus. I never said thank you properly. For everything. You don't need to. I do. You could have revealed yourself 100 times. Put Patricia in her place. Made Derek understand who he was really dealing with. But you waited. You protected us without needing credit, without needing anyone to know. That's what family does. She leaned against me, the same way she had as a child. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. Lily called us over, excited. She'd found Saturn. Emily looked through the telescope and gasped at the rings. Then, it was my turn. The planet hung in the viewfinder, impossibly distant, impossibly beautiful. Somewhere across Texas, Patricia Holloway was leading a group therapy session, trying to become someone different than who she'd been. Derek was rebuilding a life in Houston, trying to understand how his certainties had crumbled, both of them facing long roads with uncertain destinations. And here, on a quiet porch in Cedar Park, I watched my daughter and granddaughter discover Saturn together. Justice, I'd learned over 42 years, wasn't about punishment. It was about balance restored, consequences met, room for change. Some people asked me afterward if I'd planned everything from the beginning. The phone call, the documentation, the careful exposure of their crimes. The truth was simpler. I'd seen my granddaughter struck. I'd reported it. I'd followed proper procedures. I'd trusted the system I'd served for 4 decades. Everything else was consequence. The night air had cooled, but none of us wanted to go inside. Lily had found another constellation, was mapping it in her astronomy notebook. Emily was smiling, really smiling. The shadows finally gone from her eyes. This moment, this peace, this family, imperfect and healing, and together. This was justice. Not the courtroom kind. Not the kind that made headlines or legal precedents. The quiet kind. The kind that comes after the storm, when you realize the damage wasn't permanent. When you see that love outlasted cruelty. Lily looked up from her telescope. Grandpa Harold, did you know there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on Earth? I didn't know that. It's true. My teacher said so. Then there's always more to discover, isn't there? She considered this with 7-year-old solemnity. That's why I like stars. There's always more. Yes. I put my arm around her shoulders, looking up at the vast Texas sky. There's always more. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for listening.